What's going on, everybody? I hope you're having a fantastic day out there today. Today I want to go ahead and talk about something I try and keep off my channel, and that's politics. Specifically, I want to talk about the RPM Act and why everybody in the automotive community needs to be supporting this act and contacting your local representatives. Now, luckily, SEMA has made it really easy to go ahead and contact your representatives and showing your support for this act. I will include a link in the description below that you can just go ahead and click on that link. It has more information about the RPM Act as well, and it gives you an easy way to go ahead and click on there, put in your information, and it has a boilerplate letter to go to your state representative as well as your state senator. And of course, you can go in there and modify it as well. I went ahead and did it, and I got responses back from both my local representative as well as my senator, and I have to say I wasn't surprised at the response I got from either of them. So my local representative, Tom McClintock, he responded and said that he's a co-sponsor on this bill, which I'm not surprised that he is in full support of it. Of course, the response I got from my senator, Dianne Feinstein, she said that yes, the EPA has made it illegal, and if the bill makes it all the way into Senate, she will take a look at it. I can't say I'm surprised by her response. She's definitely not been a big supporter of the automotive industry in the past, but that's neither here nor there. But overall, it's something we need to be working on because this happens every few years, and if we let up on our support of organizations like SEMA and PRI, eventually our hobby is going to be drastically changed for the worse going in further in the future. Anybody out there that has bought a part for their vehicle, whether it's for their race car or if they put it on the street and they shouldn't be, that says for off-road use only, those parts are either going to become non-existent or insanely expensive, depending on what happens with the industry. Perfect example is I live here in California, and in order to modify our vehicles, we have to buy parts that are CARB approved. And so the CARB approved means it's gone through a process through the California Air Resources Board and has gone through extra testing and paperwork to make sure that it doesn't alter the emissions drastically on the vehicle, and it's okay to be installed in the vehicle. And as such, this drives the price of parts through the roof. And it's what is likely going to happen going forward if the RPM Act doesn't get passed. So opponents of this bill are basically saying that this is a money grab by the automotive industry to make tons amount of money by destroying the planet. And that's just simply not the case. The amount of vehicles that we're talking about in the automotive community for this hobby that are getting modified, whether it's for race purposes or the street or whatever, is really small compared to the overall number of vehicles on the road, as well as the other forms of air pollutants that we have going on around the world. And having the ability to modify our vehicles is a huge part of our culture. I've been building cars and modifying cars my entire life. The automotive community isn't just my hobby. Cars aren't just a part of my life. Cars are my life. Anybody that knows me really well knows that I spend all of my time that I have that's free, usually around automotive related content. Whether it's watching YouTube videos or reading magazines or books or doing other forms of research, going to events, building cars, working on the cars, taking them for drives. Cars really are a massive part of my life and almost my entire life. And that was never more prevalent than last year when the pandemic hit. It really hit me in the face when there was a 6-month window where the car scene pretty much died from having the pandemic and all the events shut down. Normally I'm going to 1 or 2, sometimes 3 events in a week, and there was literally 6 months where I had 0 events that I attended, and it was absolutely painful. And that time I spent trying to keep my automotive passion going by taking the cars out for drives. Luckily, I'm out here in the Sierra foothills. I've got some beautiful roads I can go and drive. I was working on them. I was making videos for all of you out there. Just anything I could do that was automotive related, since the car show season was essentially non-existent. And it just really showed me how much I knew that cars were a huge part of my life, and they always would be. But it really hit me in the face last year when the pandemic hit and I couldn't go and do all the normal stuff that I'm used to. And so this year I'm hoping that things are doing a lot better and we're doing a lot more events. We've got another one this coming Sunday with the FOC again. They're Cars and Coffee in Milpitas, so I'm super excited about that, being able to go and hang out. I last week went with my buddy Tim and his wife Steph to go down to Salinas and pick up their new TRX. The cars are more than just modes of transportation for those of us in the automotive community. Those of you that are watching this that are in the hobby, you know as well as I do how much these cars mean to us. And I've been watching some videos here on YouTube regarding this RPM Act, and there are some people out there whose cars, modifying cars, and that escape from reality has literally saved their lives. And I'm not saying like for myself, cars haven't saved my life, but at the same time, they have become an integral part of my life, and I couldn't imagine my life without them. And so having things like the RPM Act, they need our full support. They need to have our voices heard, and we need to make sure that our hobby is preserved going forward. If this RPM Act doesn't get passed and the EPA is able to go forward with interpreting that no production-based vehicles are going to be able to be modified in race cars, people that want to get into racing aren't going to be able to unless they have deep pockets. An actual race car that is designed to be a race car from the factory at the low end is probably going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, if you buy an older one that's 20 or 30 years old, you might be able to get it for under $50,000. But still, it's not a cheap endeavor to go and start getting into racing. Whereas right now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and buy something like, say, a Miata and get into spec Miata racing and spend a fraction of the price and be in the racing scene in under $10,000. And things like this are absolutely huge for our culture and what we like to do as a hobby. And so again, like I said, if you haven't heard about the RPM Act, you need to be reaching out to your local representatives. As I said at the beginning of this video, I'll include a link in the description below. They'll take you to SEMA's page that has more information on this piece of legislature, as well as a very simple way to contact your representatives to make sure that your voice is heard and that they understand what the automotive community means to you and what modifying your vehicle means to you. And it's just something that we need to be coming together as a community and supporting. A lot of people that aren't in the automotive community don't understand our passion and our love for these cars. They're like, well, why don't you just go buy a Prius or a stock Civic and just drive that way? Sure, you can go ahead and do that, but perfect example. When I finally needed to go and buy a commuter car, did I go out and buy a Prius or just some Toyota Tercel or some basic automotive appliance? No, I bought my 92 Civic hatchback, and I bought it for the reason of not only is it a good commuter car, cheap, reliable, and gets great gas mileage, but I bought it because there's a huge aftermarket support for it, and there's a lot of parts out there that I can use to modify my vehicle and personalize it and make it my own, which is what I've done over the last 6-7 years of ownership. And so it's people that are in political office or people in general that aren't part of the community, they don't get it. They don't understand the passion for these cars. They just see them as appliances that get them from point A to point B. Whereas for most of us in the automotive community, they're works of art, they're rolling sculptures. They're our escape from reality and the day-to-day grind. It's what allows us to express ourselves and make ourselves unique. And that's something I would hate to see go away. It would be really devastating if we can't modify our cars and make them our own going forward. And so we definitely need to come together and start with supporting the RPM Act and getting it passed through the legislature. So that way we can preserve our hobby going forward in the future. So of course there are a number of us in the automotive community that probably just go out there, buy cars, leave them stock, and enjoy them the way they are, whether they're old muscle cars or sports cars or sedans or whatever. And you're probably sitting there wondering, well, why does this apply to me? I have no intention of modifying my car. I'm definitely not going to make it a race car. Why should I care? Well, the reason you should care is it's a starting point. It's a chip into our hobby, and it will only continue to continue down the road, making things worse. And this, if you think that they're just gonna go ahead and stop here and not try and infringe further on our rights with our vehicles, you're sadly mistaken. Over time, that's all they do is chip away at our rights and our freedoms. And if we don't put a stop to it, they'll just continue doing it until eventually the hobby is completely gone and all that's left are driving appliances. And that would be a very sad day, a very tragic day that I hope never comes. So you may not think that this legislature affects you directly, but it could lead to further legislature that will, and by the time that that happens, it could be too late for the hobby. So I encourage you, again, I sound like a broken record at this point, please support the RPM Act, contact your legislatures, let them know what the hobby means to you, let them know why these cars are important to you and why they should be supporting this legislature and help preserve our hobby. So that's today's video. I'm sorry to go on this really long tangent about some political issues going on right now at the federal government, but it is something that's important that I feel we should all be getting behind and supporting. So once again, as I said, as a broken record, go ahead and click on that link below and send your representatives a letter letting them know that you are in full support of the RPM Act and wish that they were as well, and explain to them what cars mean to you and why that you're so passionate about this hobby. Because if we don't stand up for ourselves, no one else is gonna do it for us. And as always, guys, if you found this information useful, you liked today's video, go ahead and smash that like button. Give me that thumbs up. It helps me out tremendously with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you want to be kept up to date with all my future uploads, don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below and ring that notification bell as well. And that way YouTube will keep you up to date with all the videos I do in the future. And of course, guys, as always, I will see you the next video.